G'day friends and foes, welcome to Arjay's Tinler number 4. So this is a short edutainment, so education and entertainment combined, I guess you can call it, video about how Mark Aldridge from the Great Australian Party may well win a federal Senate seat for the state of South Australia at this election, even without any High Court action, Court of Disputed Returns action. So this isn't a prediction, it's just what possibly could happen. And I made up some little formulas and stuff last night to, work this out. So as you see, this is the AEC Tally Room's website, which is the Australian Electoral Commission, and it's put on South Australia. And what this quota thing is over here, 156,404, is how many votes someone needs in South Australia to become a senator for that particular election. So there were 1.2 odd million people enrolled to vote, and this is the provisional quotas set by maximum to minimum. So if it gets past 1, you get a senator basically. So the Liberal Party first off the bat got 2 senators, so did the Labor Party, and then they've got 0.6467 left, and the Labor Party has 0.1253 left after the amount of votes to create those 2 senators for those parties is removed. Then there's the Greens, One Nation, United Australia Party, Centre Alliance, Hemp Party, Animal Justice Party, Australian Conservatives, the Great Australian Party, that's the subject we're looking at, which got 0.0812 of the first preference vote. And then there's Shooters, Fishers, Farmers, Fraser Anning's Conservatives, Liberal Democrats, Australian Democrats, Sustainable Australia, Citizens Electoral Council, and unendorsed or ungrouped candidates stuck together. So technically it's not a group, but they group them together because usually they get the lowest amount of votes combined if you created a group from them, because most people just vote above the line. And you can look up the individual division results as well and polling places from there. So presumably you click Adelaide and it'll come up with all the polling places there. Maybe. No, it just combines them. Right, here you go. So you can click the actual polling place and maybe it has the results there. It does. So and it's storming outside, so that's interesting. So that's a provisional quota, by the way. It can change slightly, even this late, if just magically they find a bunch of valid votes that were cast or something like that. But we go down to first preferences by candidate. And as you can see, the Great Australian Party was Group A, or Ticket A, whatever you want to call it. And how to read this is you've got the ticket votes, which is the above the line votes where someone did a 1 for Group A for the Great Australian Party. Then unapportioned is 0, and it's probably 0 for everyone at the moment, because what that is when people have voted below the line for one of the candidates from that group, they just put it in an unapportioned pile until they divvy it up. So 1,669 people voted below the line for Mark, according to this, and 272 for Gary Matthews. And then you've got the different parties there. And this is an ungrouped candidate. So all 3 of them combined got 943 votes. And then you've got the number of formal votes, which is the valid votes that actually count for something, and the informal votes. So with those two numbers, they add up to 100% because it's only counting the votes that they have or haven't lost, and also with the people that actually voted, because some people don't bother voting at all. Just wait for Instagram notifications to close, which I don't really want showing on the video, but anyway. So with that total, that is 93.7%. How they work that out is if you go back up here, or it's on the previous page, that there was something like 1.2 million South Australians enrolled to vote, and this claims that 1.1 million of them approximately actually voted, which gives a voter turnout of 93.7%. But that can also be including as the non-turnout any missing votes. So, you know, potentially there's a lot more votes that haven't been found, just potentially. So how they work out the quota is they get the number of formal ballot papers, i.e. the valid votes, and that was what 1.1 million, just call it that. And then they divide that by the number of senators to be elected, i.e. 6 in each state, except for double dissolution elections, plus 1, so 7. And then they round that number down because it might not be a whole number, and then add 1. So you need one more vote than the rest of the equation, basically, provides. So they have a example from the New South Wales Senate, i.e. it's a federal parliament Senate, but representatives of New South Wales, senators for New South Wales for 2013. So you had 4,376,143 people or votes that were valid, and that gets divided by 7, then should say rounded down to the nearest whole number. Plus 1, so that's 625,164 votes were needed per senator. And then what they do, of course, is cut out the lowest performing candidates and then redistribute their votes. We used to have, I guess you'd say, sort of forced preferencing in that parties would determine their own preference order, and if people voted one above the line, which most people did, say 95% of people voted above the line, and to vote above the line you just put a number 1 next to or above the box that you want to vote for, but then it was automatically distributed by the parties because, you know, the party would make alliances or deals or whatever. So just hypothetically, just say the Citizens Electoral Council would say that if they didn't get voted in, then they would give their number 2 to, you know, One Nation, just as an example. But that was stopped at the previous federal election, the 2016 federal election. They changed the rules that you can vote from 6 until 12 numbers above the line and at least 12 numbers below the line. So you can either vote above or below the line. But anyway, so I made a little model, if you want to call it that, for the election, and I'll go back to the first page so you can see what I've done. And this is only a rough model, of course. So first of all, I downloaded from the AEC Tally Room's website the results for the Senate, and it has all the different states and territories listed. So then I cut that down just to South Australia because that's where the Great Australian Party did the best in terms of percentages and beating a number of parties. Then what I did was, because it's got the votes separated done by candidate here, then I added those numbers up so that I have group totals. Then I put those group totals here and the group name, and then I sorted that into the order of number of votes. So, you just scroll over it and right click, do sort, custom sort, and then change that to sort by the number of votes, and then smallest to largest. I think I ended up deleting the direct page that's done to, but as you can see here, it's already sorted in that order. So the ungrouped candidates got the least, even though it's technically not a group, but their votes would be distributed first, starting with Brett O'Donnell, then it would go to Henry Cox. If Henry Cox didn't beat Michael Lissill, how you pronounce that name, after these votes get distributed. So here what I've done is cumulative votes, so it's working out the totals basically. So there's 1,094,823, which should be the same here. 1,094,823. And anyway, so what I did then was divide the parties into the Liberal Party, then you've got the Labor Party and their allied parties, using my opinion, my opinion of so-called hard left parties, just for the sake of example. And people can disagree with my opinion, but that's my opinion. So that's Labor, and that's the Greens, and P was the Animal Justice Party, as you can see there. And then here, what was I doing? It's got incorrect numbers. So it's that number. Anyway, what I was doing here, it really should have another number down here, and adding the Liberal vote to it, was basically dividing it into the so-called hard left parties and the Liberal Party slash so-called right-wing parties. And with Group H, I think it was, I'll just check, it should be Sustainable Australia. Then I basically called that, didn't call it a left party or a right party, but have it that half the votes, say, will go to the left and half to the right, something like that, because a lot of people just vote based on names of parties. They think the Greens Party is about the environment, that kind of thing, and you can confirm this by asking people on polling day, or you go to give them a so-called how to vote card, even though it's really suggested voting only, and they say, oh no, I'm voting for the Greens because we need to save the planet, or something like that. So having sustainable in the title, a lot of left-wing people might well vote for Sustainable Australia, even though the left-wing parties are generally about having unlimited immigration or increasing immigration, whereas the so-called right parties and even centre parties are about limiting their increase, or there might even be parties that want to decrease the number of people in Australia, something like that. So what I've done here, and it is just a very rough model, was I gave the groups their names, of course, and then what actually happens when they do this vote preferencing is, I'll just go up the top, and I'll go to the other screen. So I want Senate results by state, South Australia, and it's already sorted by provisional quota. So what they do is they remove the votes from the Liberal Party that add up to each quota, and put those people as senators that were generally on top of the ticket, because most people vote in that order, as opposed to someone lower down on a ticket. So they'll give the Liberals 2 senators first and the Labor Party 2 senators, and then they have 0.6467 for the Liberal Party left as a provisional quota, and 0.1253 for the Labor Party, if that makes sense. So then the Greens will actually have more of a provisional quota than they do, as an example. As soon as they do that. So what I've done here is given them the number of senators. I can call that Senate to count or something. And then from their votes, don't worry about the cumulative total anymore for these purposes. So that's the Labor Party, and they got in Group O 332,000 votes. So what that 19,591 is that number minus 2 quota numbers, which is 156,404 for a provisional quota, and then that leaves that 19,591. Then what I've done is removed the lowest group in each case, and then just redistributed their votes. And here, for example, 55. So that is the 900 odd votes for the ungrouped candidates, and then I divided it by 17 to redistribute it, just as a, roughly adding to each other group. And then I removed the Citizens Electoral Council votes and divided that by 4. That is seen as a so-called right-wing party. So I then redistributed their votes to, the smaller parties, because I imagine that a lot of Keck people are against the Liberal Party. But I have classified the Great Australian Party, Fraser Anning Conservatives, the United Australia Party, even though it's not quite so similar, and the One Nation Party as parties that are small and, I guess you can say, conservative compared to some other parties. And also with the Australian Conservatives, even though that's a small party that's also conservative, that is aligned or associated with the Liberal Party, because Corey Bernardi was a Liberal senator, and then he left and made his own party. And then also with GAP and the Fraser Anning Conservatives, both of those parties were created by former One Nation senators, or even though I think technically Fraser Anning might not have been a One Nation senator, because maybe when he was sworn in he was already an independent. But anyway, so that's the reasoning behind that. So then there's 416 roughly votes extra to be distributed amongst those groups. And then I removed Sustainable Australia, and I gave some of that to the Greens, I think. There you go. So I didn't give any of that vote to the United Australia Party, but gave their section of the vote to the Greens. So maybe 3/4 go to the special groups, especially in that they're highlighted differently, including GAP, and apart from the United Australia Party. Anyway, so round 5, I got rid of the Liberal Democrats, so they're very similar and a small party to parties like the Great Australian Party in many ways, like pro-liberty, that kind of thing. So I divided their vote by 4 and distributed that. And then I got rid of what's that one? Oh, that was the Australian Democrat, sorry. Um, and still divided by 4. So the Liberal Democrats, what? The Australian Democrats uh, was seen as a centrist party, and a lot of people say that's why they ultimately failed, in that they weren't making people very passionate about certain things, but a lot of people also saw them as slightly left wing. And anyway, and when the Australian Democrats died, a lot of the votes that would normally have gone to them ended up going to the Greens. So that actually really helped the Greens a lot. So that's why I've given them some of the vote as well. Then I got rid of the Liberal Democrats. So that's what I was just saying about, similar to Gap. And also they'd be similar to the Shooters Party in that the Liberal Democrats are pro guns for, lawful purposes, including defending your household, as are the Shooters, and as are probably many of the Gap candidates, that kind of thing. We've got guns to protect money at banks, the armor guard people as an example, but people can't use weapons officially to defend their own home or their own family if someone's breaking in with a knife and going to stab them, although there are excuses or justifications in some states, such as the so-called protection of a dwelling in Queensland, but that's just overcomplicating things. So then the lowest vote then with this redistribution was the Shooters Party, and their vote got divided by 3, with 2/3 from memory going to the Great Australian Party. Oh no, only did it as 1/3. It's my understanding that the Shooters did have the Great Australian Party preferenced really high, maybe as number 2 in most of the states. That was an example. Then I got rid of the Australian Conservatives and divided that by 4. 4 was my go-to number. And then got rid of Labor's extra vote, remembering that they've already got 2 senators on the model, but then they had the least amount of votes left. And I think I basically just gave them all to, yes, I did, to the Greens, because a lot of people point out, and it's my opinion, that the Greens Party and Labor are basically like a coalition in terms of elections, that they invariably, in my opinion or my experience, preference each other as number 2. So in a way, the Greens Party is a feeder party to Labor, and then Labor also feeds their excess votes over the quotas to the Greens. Like I said, you can dispute things, but this is my opinion. So then I got rid of the Animal Justice Party and divided that by 3 and gave that to probably the Greens. Who else was there? Oh yeah, I gave some of that vote to Gap as well. And the reason for that is, just got to check something. I think I was supposed to divide that by 2 actually, so maybe that changes things. But anyway, so Mark Aldridge is involved with caring for animals, bushfire relief. He has an animal sanctuary, that kind of thing. So hopefully those Animal Justice Party people would realise that and, give some of their votes to him. So I'll just divide that by 2, but that might well change the results of things. Anyway, let's see what that did. So then, what was that? Animal Justice Party's 88. So then I have to make sure that the next party is still the right party to remove, which it is. So Fraser Anning Conservatives. So then, that's interesting. I just changed my results, I think. But anyway, I'll just keep going through. And like I said, I made this late at night, so sorry if I'm not explaining it so well. Anyway, so then I got rid of Fraser Anning Conservatives and gave, say, 3/4 of their vote to, oh no, 2/3 of their vote to Gap, because they did have Gap as, say, number 2 in a lot of the states until election day. There's another reason for that. They ended up apparently changing to just vote 1 above the line. But then I gave 1/6 of their vote to Pauline Hanson's One Nation and 1/6 to the Liberal Party. And remembering too that a lot of conservative parties, a lot of their support comes from people that would vote for the Liberal Party if the Liberal Party was still the so-called Conservative Party. But with the so-called Overton window, which you can research, then there's been a shift in the Liberal Party over, last 3 decades or so to the left of what they used to be. And I better hurry up before my battery dies. So then I got rid of, who's next? The Hemp Party. Hemp Party has, among policies from memory, the pro medical marijuana as an example, that kind of thing, which Gap also has. So I gave some of their votes, 2/3 of the vote to Gap, and then 1/3 went to the Greens, because the Greens are associated with marijuana as well, and hemp, which are 2 different products, but there's a lot of people that have an interest in one and also in the other. And anyway, so then the Greens got a full quota, so they got a senator in this model, and then that reduces their votes, of course, for what's left. And then their votes got redistributed to Labor from memory. Why does that say that number? 351. That's incorrect. I think that changed. This way, they can't go to Labor. Change things a little bit. Number 3, which was anyway, so then I got rid of the Central Alliance, and then redistributed their votes, divided by 3, and did 2/3 to Gap, because Gap's a centre party, and I also did 1/3 to the UAP, because it's also a small party, so a lot of people that vote for small parties have a preference for small parties and independents. Then I got rid of the UAP and then distributed their votes 3 ways, and did 2/3 to the Great Australian Party, because it's another small party. People disillusioned with the Liberal Party, and did 1/3 for the Liberals. I also, so if that's the case, then the Liberals would get another senator. But I also did, as an alternative, dividing the number of votes by 4. Just wait, I'll just plug in my computer so it doesn't die. Hopefully, just in time. So this is what's happened here. A92 shouldn't be that. It should be that one. AF92. Just fixing things up. So divided by 4 and that's divided by 3. Okay. So that one should be divided by 3. Boom. So that would be Mark slightly missing out by 1,000 votes kind of thing. But if it's divided by 4, then and 3/4 of that goes to Mark, then Mark could be, in a Senate elected already, because he would have over the quota and the most votes out of the remaining Liberal votes and the Great Australian Party. So anyway, I'll just cut out where I received a couple of notifications from Instagram probably, or maybe I'll just leave that on there, and also when I had to plug the computer in. So that's just a little model, and I did do some little fixes when I was playing with it, and this is how Mark could possibly get into Parliament even without a Court of Disputed Returns action. So just do A, because it could be him, or Libs could have another one, plus A for alternative or something. Anyway, thank you for your time. Please like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell, donate some money to me if you want via PayPal. What else? And have a lovely day. Thank you. Bye.